I look out for John.
John, you're
Okay,
sharing, so you get to.
All right, just give me 1 second. I'm on this committee, right? Just double checking. Yeah, okay, I'll start the meeting then in Marianne. So the purpose of today's meeting was to hear from the consultant with respect to design costs and estimated construction costs for, at least where we ended the last meeting was complete diagnostic along the corridor and 2 different quiet zones, one Oak, from Oak to Junction and the other May through West.
Correct.
Take it over, John.
So I'll just jump right to the cost here, I don't like that. So one of the things, as you mentioned, we were looking at having 2 quiet zones, so this option on the left here, I'll talk about the other one in a minute, but 2 quiet zones, one at Oak Street, and then the others would be from West to May. And there's some different options you can do, and I think you'll see down at the bottom, it really doesn't matter what you do. Your costs are pretty much the same. So what the 612s and 0, so 6 is the gate system, 12 is the median, and 0s do nothing. So 612-0 is gates at West, median at Rosemary, and nothing at May. 612-6 is gates at West and May, and median at Rosemary, and 606 is nothing at Rosemary, but gates at both of the other 2. Bottom line, basically, construction costs, rounding up a bit, is about 2.6 if you were just to do the very basic, which is West with gates, Rosemary with flexible medians, and then they all include gates at Oak Street, because we have to do the gates at Oak Street, so that would be about 2.6. The other 2 are pretty much the same, whether you do, you add obviously the difference is just the other gate system, so 612-6, you add another gate system, and 606, you're just taking out the medians, which are pretty well cost, so your costs about the same. We did reach out to RM Engineering, they're a firm in Boston that does railroad design. They work with Keolis and the Tiawatt. One of the things that they were saying is that if Keolis does the design, while you may wait longer to get the design started, once it starts, it's Keolis doing it, Keolis reviewing it, they work for the T, it's a pretty fast process there. If you go with a consultant to do it, we have to design the whole system. It has to still go through the T and go through Keolis review. And then come back for whatever comments they have, which I'm sure they'll have comments, and then that submission again. So basically, if you know, when you look at those plans that were done for Chelsea, that was 6 crossings. That was like 300 pages of design sheets for that. That's why so if it's nearly double for the consultant work as opposed to if Keolis does it. In some cases, depending on the complexity of the system. From their point of view, and this is a firm that designs it, their recommendation was that you would to have Keolis do it. It's just a simpler thing. They would then be bidding it and basically building it. The construction costs would still, but they would build it. If you go out and you advertise it, you got to get it to like a Hitachi to us to design all the housing cabinets, all that system, then they bid that out to a Daigle who actually goes in and moves the equipment and puts it in. You're just adding layers and layers in there. So it may not be worth it while you might, like I say, think you're saving time in the beginning. Keolis and MBTA still have to schedule the review, so you can be waiting 3 months for a review. If they do it directly, you basically are cutting them a check. You know, yeah, you might wait 3 months for them to start it, but once they start it, that's pretty much it, so.
Can you talk about the 612-0s and the relative, that, you know, which one you recommend or why?
Yeah, so this slide, these slides here, so this is the options with when you get into the supplemental safety measures, so. Basically, you know, we've talked about this a lot, what you have to do is you have to get under this value here, the quiet zone risk index, or the risk index with horns. Your quiet zone risk index has to be under the risk index with horns, excuse me. So if this is just Oak Street, if we do it as two separate quiet zones, Oak Street is its own quiet zone, would be putting gates in, that simple. It goes from 27 to 6, you're fine, there's no question there. So then when we come over to these, so this option is, so Rosemary is the only one that has the constant warning system in it. So the nice part about that is if we can get away with doing nothing or the median there, there's no additional cost for that system. We don't have to go putting the constant warning time in. So from a safety perspective, I still think we should do something. So the minimum to do there would be the flexible medians that we talked about last time. Looks like we can get between 60 and 80 feet, which should be sufficient to satisfy FRA. So if we do that, again, just looking at those three as its own zone, we get it to 15. So that's just across the gates at West and just a median at Rosemary with nothing at May, leaving, you still do the constant warning time, that's still part of it, but you wouldn't be changing out the gates.
Why wouldn't you change the gates at May?
This was just an option to
Okay.
show, to show you don't necessarily need to, you could go with this, you're still 15,000 under the
Okay.
18,000. I would personally recommend that you do
Duncan's
this.
making a face, so.
I'm agreeing.
You know, so.
Yeah.
But
okay,
I just
fine.
wanted to give you
Thank
kind
you.
of
I get it.
the range of things,
Okay.
same here with this last one. You know, you could just do the gates at West and May and nothing at Rosemary, no median. Your score is still under that 18,000. But again, there, I mean, you're talking 40, 50 grand to put a plastic median, it's well worth it from a safety point of view. So, I mean, my recommendation would be to do this middle one, which is the gates at both, well, gates at all of them except Rosemary, because Oak Street, you need gates regardless. So that's one option, and then I was thinking today,
I'm sorry, John, did you put the median in? Do you not have any gates?
no,
Or you just keep the gates you have?
yeah, you would have the
Okay,
gates
thank
that you
you.
have, yeah, you don't have to put the quad gates, then you still
Fine,
keep the
yeah.
gates you have.
Okay,
But you would have a non-zero increment or decrement in the risk if you had the medians. I'm just saying, if we're spending money on other crossings and there's no safety difference at all.
Oh, no, there's-
Yeah, there is, right,
there
so,
is,
yeah.
so-
I
so you
that's
go,
what I was saying, okay.
Whatever these numbers mean, I don't know, if 28,000 is bad or good, but you go from 28,000 to 7,200, where you put the median, and you go to, so, you know,
But at Rosemary, it goes from
Right.
7,200 down to something,
Well, if you-
7,62.
at Rosemary, I don't think you need the quad gates at all, that's what I'm saying, you've got you got the constant warning time there. So if you put it in the medians there as your treatment, you drop it down to in that 7,000 range from 28,000, so you're seeing, you know, significant benefit.
Rosemary itself is a significant benefit. Okay,
It's not enough to bring down the whole quiet zone, so you couldn't get away with just putting the medians out there and getting credit for the other three. You still have to do something at one of the others, and that's why I was saying, if for whatever reason you didn't want to change the gate system at May, you know, that possibly because of the issue of them staying down when you're coming, you know, outbound from the city, we talked about the quad gates would have to stay down, and you couldn't get through in an emergency. If you kept the gates that are there, you could potentially weave through.
I just wanted to note that I was watching the train the other day and they come down now. When the
Yeah.
train's in the station, so I don't know that there's any difference with, for May,
For May.
On May.
On May, okay.
they stay down on May while. the
It
train-
might just be then until Great
Because
Plains.
of the length of the train, maybe, yeah.
No, it's probably just how the circuits are set up.
So it's already doing that.
I know that for Great Plain, they don't
It's
go
not-
down until
it's not,
it
yeah.
starts to move. It may at May Street might not make a difference.
And we did commit at the very beginning of this process that we wanted to make everything marginally safe.
Yeah.
So the 612-6 does that, every
Yeah.
crossing is safer?
So you're going from, you know, 28 to 30s all down to, in the sevens. So again,
And that was true at Oak as well.
Yeah, at Oak, Oak, you're going from 27,000 to 6. I mean, because that's the only option you have there is to put the gates. There's too many driveways and stuff to look at to meet. One thing that's interesting, kind of plays, is that, with the downtown project, you could include Great Plain as part of the quiet zone. You would still obviously need to spend the money to do the constant warning time, and you'd still have the gate down issue. But if you wanted to keep the 2 gates as opposed to the 4, so in theory, an emergency vehicle could still get through there, that is an option that you could do. The benefit is it now it's quiet going through Great Plain as well, so you're getting all 5 of them included. So you could do that with.
Does it become safer on is there a number here?
Yeah, so if we were to, I'm sorry, yeah.
Also, don't we have the issue with the housing, the room for the housing for the?
Well, that's gonna happen
Currently.
regardless, because that's part of the constant warning time. So that, whether you put the gates down or not, so keeping it completely out, you would avoid that, yes.
Or avoided it in the immediate future?
Well, if you're doing 2 separate quiet zones, keeping Great Plain completely out of it, then you don't have to change the housing, because you don't have to put the constant warning time in. If your concern was solely the quad gates as opposed to, if we kept the 2-gate system, or that, and we could, with the new corridor that you could possibly supplement with a median or something there to add additional safety, but you can still put included in the quiet zone. The difference is the gates would stay down while the train's in the station, regardless of whether it's 2 or quad. So that's.
And as far as so that is an issue for public safety that we have to figure out.
Right.
But if we were to design Great Plain in there now, I mean, I think it's everyone's preference, but
Right.
where would you put the constant warning time?
You'd have to wait until we do the downtown redesign, which at the very earliest would be 2025.
So,
Not the constant warning time, the gates. The constant warning time is all based,
But you can't put the constant warning time in until we make space in the streetscape to accommodate the controls, right?
How far does it need to be? Like, can you lose a parking spot in, the Chestnut Street lot and?
It has to be, they have to be able to see the gate system and see it operate. So, because we asked the question, like, where May Street is so close, could you cable it from May Street down to Great Plain? But it's kind of like when you're operating a traffic signal pattern, you need to see how the signal is working. Technically, it's possible. I mean, it's just wires going another length, but they want a separate housing at each crossing that's connected. So you would still have to have something over there. Doesn't necessarily have to be now, it could be over on the other side of the street. And we don't know for sure whether it would fit or not. I mean, we could look at it.
I guess the question is, do we factor that in the design? And if it's not feasible for
Well, I
a
think
variety of reasons, factor it in the design estimate that we're putting for the company? Or is it too unrealistic?
I guess my thought on that was, when we look at when we go to town meeting, what is the cost of the entirety of the project and what is conditional upon each step? So I feel like if Great Plain Ave does become part of the equation, now it's like, do we go for 2 mini quiet zones and then wait for Great Plain Ave to come up and then maybe incorporate them? Because it sounded like we could always incorporate them afterward.
Yeah,
And really consider it a standalone. Or do we look at it one big project, in which case, I mean, there's not 0 cost for the constant warning time, correct? There's a cost.
Is one of your cost estimates including?
so
Oh.
what's up here now?
Oh, one.
So I talked about the ones on the left, which are the Oak Street. The only reason I added Oak Street was just to show the safety in with the cost. So anything to the left of that bar, the numbers at the bottom all include Oak Street. Oak Street's again, only have.
So if we're 612.6 and Keolis is designing it,
Yeah,
your estimate of design is
About
400?
it is about 400, yeah.
So the addition of the constant warning time at Great Plain Ave is about $1 million.
Yeah.
Just the constant warning time?
So if, right now, if you were to do, no, it's.
So it would be
yes.
which one are we looking at? 612, 612.6.
I was looking at the zero, six,
think I
12,
have
6,
these-
0,
I
6.
think I have these flipped, this,
The dollars? Yeah,
yeah. Cause,
so 400,000.
yeah, but, yeah, you talk, I mean, you round it up, it's basically, it's in the range of $500,000 for Keolis to do a design, probably about between 8 and 9 for Selfridge to do the design. I mean, that's, the options in there are, it's just kind of where you put the equipment really, but the costs are all order of magnitude are pretty equal. So to your point, Kara, it's like if you waited and on the Great Plain, you know, you could come in at any time and just add it to either or both of the quiet zones, knowing that you're gonna have to spend another, you know, X amount, $750,000, $800,000 to go through the design of the constant warning time and all that again and do it.
I think the cost is less of the concern than the gates being down for
Yeah.
longer than they currently are from a public safety side. And I don't know, I can talk to fire chief, but I don't know how long is it maneuverable, the ambulances
I have-
are to be between those two.
I have a
Yeah,
question.
let's let you get back to you, Lars, in 1 sec. Yep. I know you have, well, bring your face up.
I mean, I don't think that will be that much noticeable. I mean, I've watched the train come in a few times. I mean, it doesn't stop that long, but you never know. I mean, it's kind of, you know, it's kind of the 1 in a million chance, okay, the train comes in, you got 1,000 people boarding, they're all in wheelchairs, there's an emergency call and the fire truck has to go through downtown. We just did for Pfizer up on 93, because they were concerned about, they have a track that comes across their only driveway. So they were concerned that they could be trapped in there, so we had to do an emergency exit out onto 93 for them. It was a permanent nightmare. But it's like, okay, what are the odds that the train is gonna crash there right at the tracks, and the track's gonna be closed down for over 6 hours? I mean, people can stay on site there for a certain amount of time. Tracks are closed down for over 6 hours, and we're like, the odds are infinitesimal, you know, but they're like, we need this.
But I think that
So-
the idea that it might take in the morning 2 minutes for people to load on, and they say it's 4 to 6 minutes that they need to get to the patient in order to
Right,
provide issues.
No,
those
I
2
mean,
minutes could be critical.
but it's also like, you've gotta have the call exactly at that time the train's coming through. That's where it's not the dispute of how long it takes, it's the odds of them both happening
Okay,
simultaneously.
well,
So
that's the piece we can't solve today,
Yeah.
Yeah.
but I guess, Lars, I promised you next. Is
So
there a reasonable location that we could identify on town land that we already own? Where we could put the housing for the constant warning time that could stay there even when we redesign it downtown? Is that something that could be designed, or is that like just unreasonable?
I think as long as it's, I mean, as long as it's within the railroad right of way, or you give them right of
Well,
way.
they own,
I mean, they own,
they
it,
own-
walk through there.
they own some of that parking.
In the Chapel Street lot, yeah.
Well, could they just locate the bungalow and you just sort of equipment cabinet, whatever you wanna call it, and, you know,
Oh, they-
be confident that that location would stick when you came back to actually install the thing?
Well, I mean, if I don't know which is gonna come first, the downtown project or the quiet zone
Yeah.
project, but I mean, if they, once they get into that, and again, that diagnosis that they're gonna do, they're gonna look at that and say, where can we put the whatever, bungalow, whatever, or house, where can we put that? And if they go out there and say, there's no room here, we need a space here, then the town can say, okay, we'll give you that. We can also be out there with them and say, well, I mean, I don't think where they put it is gonna govern how Great Plain Ave looks in the future, you know, I mean,
My
if
question
it was
is,
already there, we'd design around it, so whether it's there now or there in 2 years, we'd design around we wouldn't be moving a railroad house to accommodate the Great Plain.
I mean, if we can't overcome public safety, we can't, but.
Yeah,
What's the footprint?
I don't exactly know, I mean, it's, if you go up to Rosemary, you'll see there's a bungalow there, it's like a backyard shed type size building. The question is, I don't know how close or far it needs to be from the tracks, and then if there's any requirement on like the townwide, how, if it has to be offset from the right of way, that there's any zoning or type of issue.
Lars, would you mind, just, maximizing, Lars, so we can speak? And turn it over to you, Lars.
John, is it this?
You have to unshare, you have to unshare.
Yeah,
I could.
that's one of those.
By 10 maybe?
Okay, Lars,
Yeah,
there you go.
it's a big shed.
8x10, 8x12.
Yeah.
If I may, I think the person I was looking to jump in there a moment ago was Justin, I believe, when we were talking about I think the prioritization of the train versus traffic. Is that right, Justin? I don't want to step for you, but I thought I saw your face jump up there.
Yeah, no, it was, I was in transit, so I just physically got home. Just give me like 2-3 minutes, but there's one thing that I wanted to mention, and I know this can be a further conversation because it has to do with Great Plain. But what the feasibility of wayside horns in the calculus, of whether it needs that is a possible solution, at least for the downtown, if public safety has a problem with, crossing the line and the gates down extra time, there is possibly another solution. And I just wanted to see the consultants on his opinion on that.
Yep,
So the wayside horns is a supplemental safety measure that you could look at. The problem is you still have to do the constant warning time.
Okay.
If we're including it, and the constant warning time is what requires the gates to stay down longer. So you'd
Yep,
still
no, that's
have-
fine. And that may be more of a solution for the golf crossing, but but anyways, okay, that's what I was doing. And there was one other question, but it's still written down in the car. But so I've got to pop in here inside. I'm gonna join on my other computer, so you could probably have to re-push me as a panelist.
yep, Maz is on it.
Maybe
Perfect.
in the intervening seconds,
So
I-
Duncan is going next, yes.
Oh, I'm curious, is there anything that the fact that there is a wayside signal governing the inbound movement at Great Plain, can we take advantage of that in any way? I mean, I think they have to pull onto some kind of island circuit to even get that signal, if I'm not mistaken.
I don't believe there's any wayside signal at Great Plain. There's a preemptive signal for the roadway
I
traffic.
don't think there's a national,
Yeah, that's for the traffic.
this is a railroad signal.
Yeah, there's a railroad signal
Right.
there, but I don't think there's any wayside horn assembly.
No, I'm talking about the wayside, and the fact that the train can't by regulation proceed, well, that thing's indicating red, the railroad signal. Now,
That railroad signal, there's a railroad signal that faces inbound, that's for the driveway next to the railroad track, that's not for the train. That's part of the wigwags, like you see overhead, yeah.
It's just, okay,
It's a,
Can you pull it up?
we don't have the.
it's a round, because I
Is
noticed
this
that.
what you're referring to? I'm sorry, I know eyes are.
I'm not, okay, so we're looking at Great Plain, if you were
Yeah.
actually on the
This is
station
what you're referring
platform.
Yes, can you pull it up over?
Yeah.
Oh, that one, okay.
It's just school, it's just.
That was- I thought you were talking
Preview at
about-
the Great Plains
Great
intersection.
Plain Avenue section.
The reason I'm curious.
Cause you can see the right of way there too and how narrow it is, where there isn't the space to put.
The other one is make the station stop and then pull forward 10 or 20
It's-
feet. And
It's,
wait for that
that's,
clear,
that's,
that
the-
signal to
that's the
clear.
problem with the constant warning time, is it doesn't allow that functionality. And I don't understand it, I'm not an MBTA guy, I'm not a
Yeah.
railroad guy,
Yeah.
but they can, my
then just
simplistic
review.
understanding of it is they can keep that functionality at West Street because it's the last stop, so the train is
And
almost
then,
at the stop
the other
there.
direction.
But once you get to
That's what I
Great
think
Plain,
he's referring
because
to.
the train is coming in, they can't override the constant warning. So once that train comes into the station, the gates come down.
Is that the one you're talking about, Duncan?
Yeah, that's the signal. That's the hardware I'm talking about. I'm just saying that they don't get it clear without actually being
Our
very
unders-
much on the signal.
Yeah.
They'll have made the station stop, it pulling out, at that point, they'll get a clear signal on that indication.
Right,
It's
that's a,
conditional on. their-
and that's a manual system that they operate.
Yeah.
But once the constant warning time device goes in, that system goes away. That doesn't work anymore. The two can't be operating
okay.
simultaneously. That's
Well,
how we
I'm just thinking, is
understand.
there any way to, work around the fact that that exists to make an argument that we could achieve some safety improvement?
They were pretty clear in our conversation that they would not entertain a quiet zone if we did not have constant warning time at
Yeah.
every single one
Okay,
of our station.
So I guess the question I have is. If it's $100,000 more to have Keolis design something and they can think of something that works with the with public safety, does it make sense to,
Well, the question is gonna be public safety.
yeah.
Yeah.
Right,
I mean, if public safety and, well, for right now, for what you're doing for the funding, the design, I mean, I think that, you know, I mean, it's,
I would think that there would be great interest in all of these processes. If there was a way to do it, and like JP said, is there a parking space or is there something at the
And then we
bank?
also
or-
just need to look at the functioning of.
so.
With the expectation it might not work, right?
So, but if you're gonna have them design it, we also have to go through the application to show what we're doing. So we have to know what we're doing before we kind of start the process. But that, once it's in their hands, I mean, essentially what we're gonna give them is a plan of each intersection that says, okay, we wanna do the medians here, we wanna do quad gates here, for the at-grade crossing part, right? And then they're gonna design everything around that from the track circuitry. So they'll figure out where the houses need to go, where the gates need to be placed, and, you know, I mean, we'll show roughly in the plans, but there may be some adjustments, so they can certainly design it. But I think that the question, and we don't necessarily need the quad gates on grade plane, we can get away with probably a median. The question is public safety, whether that will be acceptable to them.
Okay. Lars has his hand up.
Yeah, I was just gonna say on this topic, I mean, I think, so going back to what we talked about, I think at one of the previous meetings, following the example of Chelsea, they did all their constant warning times first, and then now they're waiting to implement their quiet zone stuff. So to the extent that we're trying to figure out what are we going to do with Great Plain Avenue, not the quiet zone stuff, but just the overall layout changes that are being considered. And if, it sounds like Karis was saying the timing of that is next year. I would think if you really lay out the timing of this, we go to town meeting in May. Forgive me, I'm not gonna use the right terms, but it gets certified or approved or whatever by the Attorney General sometime in June or July, and then, you know, then we're hiring Keolis or the consultant, and it's gonna take however many number of months. We're gonna be getting close to 2025 anyway. And I would think that at least understanding what we would need to do to accommodate constant warning time would be very valuable information as we're thinking about what do we want to do with the Great Plain redesign, because exactly has been discussed, and I think John was saying it, you know, maybe it doesn't end up being in the same place where the shed is right now. It's got to be somewhere else, and that would need to just be considered as part of that redesign effort. And then the other thing is, you know, as it relates to the public safety concerns, and I think Duncan was poking at this a little bit, which is, of course, the MBTA and Keolis field operations people that we met with at the golf course are going to say that the train has first priority, and therefore they're going to shut down the road while the train's in the station. But that's basically saying the train has first priority. And I think to Duncan's point, why can't it be that the train, after it's ready to start moving, then it drops the gates or whatever and waits for the all clear to reduce that delay time? But the other thing is then that just supports the whole idea of, if it, you know, because I certainly appreciate the public safety response time is a major concern. It gets back to then doing the medians, and maybe it's not the flexible medians. Maybe we do proper vertical granite curbed median on Great Plain Avenue for the aesthetic benefits and everything else. And we have the available width if we're going to reduce the lanes. That's going to just reduce the amount of time that the delay will be, because you don't have to have that extra sensory time that they were describing, where if the 4 quad gates come down, they have to have enough time to make sure that they sense a car is there, that the gates can go back up so people can get out. And that added seconds and seconds to the process. Maybe staying with 2 quad gates with medians, flexible or permanent, is a way to reduce that burden on the public safety response time. So it seems to me like it would be a prudent investment to at least do the design, at least for the constant warning time, just to have all the information that all of you and all of we need to understand what are the options for Great Plain Avenue as the redesign effort happens next year.
Thanks, Lars. Is the design stale? I mean, if you did a design for the constant warning time and then you didn't build it for a couple more years, is it? How long does it
It's
last?
hard to say. I mean, I would say you'd be okay, but who knows what technology changes, and what requirements happen. I mean, we're always asking, future-proof your design when you're doing signals. It's like, well, we can do it based on what we know for equipment and technology now, but in 2 years, it could be a completely different, different animal.
So
So,
is there a stage where you could actually install the constant warning time and then by its mere existence, it
Well,
would
if
be
you-
grandfathered in when you came to do the.
well, if you're gonna do the constant warning time, I mean, now you've got it, it's part of the plan, so whether you put a median there or quad gates,
Yeah.
that's not the question is whether public safety will accept that, because, even with a 2-gate system, if you do a raised median with a 2-gate system, now they would have to go around that median, depending how far that median is back, and then weave through the gate system. So it's really gonna be a call for them, how they want to do that.
I'll play devil's advocate with public safety. Eventually, if, even because they had said that out at the golf course, eventually when they upgrade this, which I mean, they don't have a timeline for that. But eventually, if they go out there and upgrade it, they're gonna put constant warning time on it anyway.
Correct.
So, okay,
and-
so it's inevitable.
So
for-
basically, at some point, whether it's today or 50 years from now,
Which,
They don't have a capital.
yeah, they don't have a capital plan,
Well,
so.
actually brings up an interesting point that I was gonna bring up from a political side to push, because they did, when we would talk to these folks from R&M Engineering, they did upgrade all the, ACT, automated train control, ATC, automated train control circuitry on the track. So when we asked them that question about whether they had a capital plan or not for these locations, they, within the last 2 or 3 years, they've upgraded
They
those
did the
tracks.
positive train control, is that the one?
Yes.
Yeah, they did the whole. track,
They did
all
they did the whole track, and they jerry-rigged it into the old equipment. That, they should have done the constant warning time and upgraded all the track circuits at the time. So, to your point, at some point, that's gonna have to be done, because the equipment's just gonna fail. So I don't know, from a political side of things, if you have the senators and so forth that can push and say, hey, we're willing to help out here with some of this, but asking us to do $2 million of repair work on the tracks is benefiting MBTA. I mean, the constant warning time isn't benefiting you at all. Obviously that would take time. It's, to do that, but it is an option because, at some point, something's gonna break to the extent that they have to replace it. When they do, they'll upgrade the constant warning time. So at some point, those gates are gonna be down all the trains in the station.
So 612, 612, 6, you said is a Keolis design of about 525? 500?
Yeah, I mean, I would say.
600?
I would say if you're going Keolis design, I didn't put contingency in for the design, I did on the construction.
And then,
But I would say about 600 for Keolis. would do.
so that you're looking at about, $5 million, is that what if we were to do this with Great Plains, it's about 5 million, and if you did 612, 6, it's about 4 million?
Yeah,
Okay, so Karis, back to what you said, it's about 1 million?
which is, I mean, if you look at Chelsea, they have 6 crossings and it's
The chairs need to be replaced.
It's like 3.5, but all the constant warning time stuff is done. So that's just the gate systems stuff. So they were about 700, roughly 700,000 for just the supplemental stuff they do.
So if you're saying 600 or 400, would you add contingency there, and how much would you be?
Probably put the 20% on it.
And what would be the contingency for?
Like the dollar amount, or what would the contingency? like,
Why do you need,
Because we're guessing at what Keolis would be.
and,
Yeah,
conditions that you don't know?
yeah. For the construction costs, the construction costs reflect a 20% contingency.
Okay,
I didn't put it in the design because I didn't really know what it was.
I'm still kind of curious whether you think there's any value in doing the constant warning time relating to Great Plains to take off the table the mystery of where the houses might be, where other things might be. And I guess where I'm stuck is when I think of the Great Plains design process, and I'm thinking it's gonna go around with a tail chasing exercise with, pedestrians and bikes and the color of the curb and what lanes, lane markings and signage and. Yeah, I can see that going 3, 4, 5 years. I may be pessimistic,
25 is
but,
unlikely,
Yes,
so you're more likely 26.
the,
oh, yeah.
but our understanding is the lead time on the gates themselves is 12 months as well, so
Yeah.
It could be downhill.
we could be doing them at a similar period of time. I think the concern would be if you were to do it with a current layout, there's no physical place to put the housing.
We don't necessarily know that, it's tight,
Yeah.
and again, I mean, again, to your point, if they had to go out and do it today, they would find a place to put the
Yeah.
house, or they would come to you and say,
Yeah.
we need a right of way to put the house in somewhere. So, I mean, they're not gonna put it in what I would envision as the streetscape section of Great Plain Ave.
Yeah.
I mean, and if they were, I mean, you could say, well,
No,
we'll push it back this way. I mean, I don't think one necessarily determines the other, because if we went out and built it now, if they just went out tomorrow, and put a new shed up, they would have to design the Great Plain Ave around that. If we design Great Plain and they choose to move the shed, and it doesn't fit where it currently is, and they need a new location, well, they're not gonna say, take out your sidewalk to put the shed in, they're gonna have to find a place to put the shed. They may need to request an easement or something from the town, but they're still gonna have to find a place to put it, and it just, where it is right now, it looks tight, but they may be able to fit it where it is right now. And
can you
that,
show us where it is right now?
that will come out from
Across the
the
street from where you were.
the diagnostic stuff, right? Because that's the other part of this, we have to.
Cabinets there.
So,
Those are about as narrow as those houses get anywhere.
well, that's not the house. The house is could be
It's on the other side.
a lot bigger.
That's just the cabinets for the signals.
But if you flip around, look at the
No,
other.
it's not.
Where is it? Past
If you
the
just
jeweler?
go a little bit, closer to the town common, you'll be able to see it.
Are you
So
guys able to share the
Turn
screen you're
around.
looking at?
Oh,
Yeah.
yes, sorry, yep,
No problem.
once we find it.
You're a little far, but it's that cabinet up on the left.
Oh, okay, yeah,
And so the property line, I think, is like right what they're up against.
Right here.
Yeah.
Annoying.
And I imagine they need some amount of clearance from the train itself.
I'm just obviously gonna say the bowels there and everything else, and it looks like they've got a platform there too, like a access for people accessing the.
If you go up to Rosemary, you can see what the
right to the left of the library.
Yeah, right
To
there.
the- yeah.
You can actually see it, yeah, but it like lets you, the picture will let you in the parking lot next door.
Yeah, so that,
There you go, you can see it right there.
Lars, did you have your hand up again, or did you not put it down?
Yes, I was
Yes,
just
go ahead.
gonna add, and if someone else heard differently, please correct me, but my recollection when they talked about the need for potentially needing a bigger shed at Great Plain Avenue, I think what they were saying was their standard shed is bigger. I think it has like that one we just looked at up at Rosemary, but I got the impression he was saying that's the standard shed, but that doesn't mean they can't do something else. It would just be more expensive to do, a narrower, longer shed or something like that. So I'm just wanted to throw that out there to ask did anyone else hear that or get that perception, or did I just make that up in my own head? That
I
was just my
heard
own
that-
sense.
I heard that they had concerns about the right of way that they currently have and how close the abutting property is and their ability to fit a shed in there. I think what I heard from them was that they have a hard time with the current infrastructure that they have. But as far as different configurations, I didn't hear that, but we could certainly ask the question.
Yeah, okay.
and the
Just
other thing
thinking
is,
about
I mean, if you look
here,
at,
we have more space potentially available, whereas I would imagine somewhere else on their network, they've got some situation that's even tighter than what our situation is, and they've had to find a way to solve it, but that could be buying a Ferrari solution to a Chevy problem. I don't know, but
Yeah, I mean, the problem is the amount of equipment that is necessary, from my understanding, again, I'm not the real expert, but talking to people, is that the amount of equipment that goes for that constant warning time, they need that bigger shed. But if you were to look at Rosemary, that shed is 100 feet off of the roadway, down further on the line where they right of way goes out. So it doesn't necessarily, like I say, they couldn't put it as far down as May Street, but it doesn't have to be on top of the intersection either. So I think once you, on the, I guess we did easterly side, on the parking lots, the station side, I'm sure you could fit that shed somewhere,
And when that one probably is that particular large shed also that got interlogic switch control stuff in there too. It's not just crossing.
So the concerns are, we don't want, a Home Depot shed in the middle of our beautiful newly designed multi-million-dollar downtown,
Yeah.
right? We have to worry about public safety and whether they feel like they would have a way in a true emergency to get through. I don't know if a median would make it worse or better. I mean, I assume if they have eyes on the engineer and the conductor, or whatever you call it, what do you call it?
But the train crew.
That they're not gonna come. I mean, can the ambulance go through? Would that be, I don't know what.
They're not
Fire truck-
particularly nimble.
The
Fire
fire
truck's not
truck
gonna make
will be
it,
nimble.
but
My question is it part of Great Plain, they wanted to include some cameras into public safety? If you have cameras on public safety, if they were dispatched, they could just go down Oak Street, which wouldn't have the issue because.
so they don't want to go.
Yeah, they
So
can't.
if you ask them, they'll tell them it'll add a minute onto their response time. That's, I mean,
Yeah.
they are talking about minutes. And I think the main concern, not that there is a main concern for all of the welfare people, but there's you have North Hill right there. And so that's their main.
Well, North Hill is serviced by station. I'm just gonna push back.
That was what I got when
I know, but we have a full ambulance.
when I talked with the chief, so
And
we
we
can
can-
certainly have more
Yes.
conversations. What I'm gonna suggest, and I don't know if it's GPI or if it's the town, but I think we need to have somebody sit out there and do some time studies and say, how long is it on average actually
Yeah.
gonna be adding? Cause, right now it's only down for 30 seconds a minute. If it's, 2 to 5 minutes on average, that's a change versus a minute.
That's a huge help. Do we have?
That,
somebody-
and that's a recent change, because I used to take the commuter rail every day. So they actually used to, when they were going inbound, they would load the passengers. They would then move the train up to the position, then hit the gates. Now the gates start when the train is still at the platform before they move forward. So they're still at the passenger stopped position, gates for Great
they're
Plain
already doing
down,
it.
and then they push through.
They're
That's
doing
just
it
about a year ago
before-
change, maybe 2 years ago.
But not the whole time.
But not the entire time they're
But
sitting at the
everybody's
station.
on the train. And, once the conductor gives the wave, that's when the signals activate. Because I got that deal with it every night, you get to the parking lot.
I'm understanding that's not compatible with CWT.
Yes, right.
Right.
Yeah,
So what's the best way to, is it, just a whole day would you do, or 2 days? What, John, how much day did you think we would need, Tom?
Well, I mean, the problem is the trains are inbound, I have to go by the schedule, so, and, it's gonna be the morning, that's gonna be the heavier boarding times. You don't care about people coming off, because that's May Street that you bring it down.
And maybe
So-
it's already stopping, at least the
Yeah,
twice.
so I mean,
we've got also light passenger volumes now still.
How long do you
They're
think it-
coming back, but they're,
I took it last week, it was much, much more than a year ago, but yes, you're right.
in ballpark, it's, 45 seconds for passenger activity and I don't know, 10 or 15 to do the door and track work, so
A
an
minute,
order of a minute added potentially,
at a Great Plain, it's already down on me.
right.
Which
Oh,
the public safety wasn't worried about because they have the opportunity to bail out.
Yeah.
The problem is when you're in Great Plain Ave right there, you're trapped. You don't have an ability to bail out.
So what do we want somebody to do, like 6 AM to noon?
Like Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday.
yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
if you, to get a good average, you're gonna have to do it a lot, because again, you only have basically 2 or 3 trains that you're looking at. So if you just do one day, you're only gonna have 3 data points, you know, so I mean,
Well,
it
it runs every hour. If you do 6 to 12, that's 6 trains.
yeah, but there's no one getting on. I mean, your volume of people boarding at 6 and 7 o'clock in the morning is a lot different than 10 o'clock in the morning.
Yes.
You know, and that's.
Be possible to get something off the signal system historically. We're doing that for King Rail, because it depends where their track circuit boundaries are relative to the station and everything,
I mean,
but.
Can you pull
If
that
you're
from
running a small sample, yeah, I mean, it's probably not gonna be that
Curious.
one.
Do the signals log the time from the moment that they get the,
The signals don't lie, the things governing the signals, occupancy of track circuits.
well, the output of the signal, their output from the signal to control the traffic signal, so it gets an output that the signal's on. So this, it would
Yeah,
know
but
the
the-
moment that the signal's
I
on.
don't think our signals
But that-
log
that-
the data of how long we're on.
the
I
signals.
don't know, I can check.
The signals will log every time a preempt is called. The problem is, it's not, you don't care about when the preempt is called or when the gates come down, you care about before the preempt
Yeah.
happens when the train's in the station.
Do the cameras at the intersection capture the timing of the gates and or,
Yeah, could we just watch it?
yeah, could we watch
The
it?
gates don't help you, it's how long it
Oh.
takes the actual train to sit in the station.
Because
No,
we
I'm saying,
know,
but can you watch the video instead of sitting up there?
no, because the cameras don't point.
They don't pick
Oh,
up the train.
okay.
Depending on where the track circuits are, you could get from the track circuit indications when it's occupied and when it's vacated.
Could we send
Which
the camera?
might address the issue, but we have
Versus
to know.
We could do it, yeah, trail and,
We could do something.
yeah.
There's also something that's odd, it happens, I'd say about twice a week, that they're loaded. And the train's just sitting there.
I wonder if they're waiting for,
Could be schedule thing, that they're ahead of schedule. Could be
Or
something.
they're waiting on that signal again, but.
They
Yeah, I
don't,
mean, the thing, if you're running,
You know what
you wanna
time
just
it
have a log and log every little thing. You know,
Around the nine.
Wheels.
Yeah.
so if we were to look at it from the first train in the morning
what is-
to,
what's the schedule
to
then?
noon, that should be right.
6:08,
I'm going
7:08,
the wrong
8:08,
direction
9:08, 10:08, 11:08.
I mean, yeah, honestly, I think if you just watch the 6, 7, and
Yeah.
Eight
morning
trains.
and-
maybe the 9.
I was gonna say, I feel like now with the flexible work hours, I actually think your 9 and 10 have more than they did before. I think that your
I'm not gonna
ridership
deny
is
it.
more spread out than it
Yeah.
used to be.
People there.
But if you're gonna have somebody, if we're either gonna do a camera or have somebody sit there, I don't think 2 hours is gonna.
We might wanna
We could
circulate.
Go
on
for a walk
ourselves.
around the neighborhood and come back, they can go take a look at other issues that we have. and come
Yeah.
back.
Usually that, you probably wanna design a field data collection form and make sure everybody who's doing it understands everything you're gonna measure. I mean, what you want your wheel stop, you want, point where. Yeah, if you feel like recording doors open at the beginning and end of passenger activity, not essential, but you wanna capture the point where that is, the doors are closed. And then the point where train
How
starts
does
to
that-
move, and if it stops again, you capture that stop, and if it starts again, you capture that start.
That's what I'm thinking, mount a camera on the dumpster thing and.
And set up a
We can
time
pick it up on
for
it.
us to
Yeah.
turn on and off, like those hours and see how long.
You should
Exactly when.
talk to health about that because there
Actually,
might be a camera potentially already there. Might be pointed in the wrong direction.
Yeah, no, I understand where you're going with this.
Rebecca Verman.
Yeah,
Okay. So, okay, well, I guess the question for the team here is, do we ask to hold 500,000 in the, or is it 500 or 600? Sorry, 600,000? What's 600,000 plus 20%? I don't know if 20% is worth.
720.
Seems high.
120, yeah.
we had talked earlier, my suggestion had been if we could keep the number at the same, but write the definition of the article, so it's broader, that some of that funding could be used for construction or construction oversight, because we've talked about the construction at Rosemary, for example, could be very low dollars compared to the construction at May, so maybe we could start some of the construction process earlier.
I don't think we'd be anywhere near ready to do any construction before May, next May, right? Because we have to go through this design and then get POs to approve it. I think I think, I like the idea, but I think that in this particular case, I think we need to go to town meeting and say, this is what we wanna do. And this is what we expected to cost in the future, and we'll come back. I don't know that we'll know by October. But we can try,
Depends on, I guess, when Keolis starts the work, right? That's kind of the question.
or even, I mean, if we were doing it, we couldn't start until July 1st.
So, yeah, I mean, I think the first step in this is to, by checking with them again, get them out for the diagnostics. So that's gonna give us a lot of the
Does this
information.
include the diagnostic?
Yes, it does. I think I have like 60 or 70 on the construction side. It's part of the construction cost.
So, okay, so we can't have them, if we're only funding design in May, we can't have.
We can have them come out.
The diagnostic should be as part of the design cost, right? Because you have to do the diagnostic before you can do the design.
Yeah, I could.
So do we wanna revisit the numbers and make sure that the design includes contingency and includes the diagnostic?
Yeah, I can take, I mean,
If we did 750, we could.
I think 750 will cover it.
You go with that?
What three right now?
Yeah, we have.
That should, and they may surprise you and come back being even cheaper. I mean, I'm trying to be the worst case scenario, so you don't have to go back to town meeting for
We
it.
can still write the article broadly.
Yeah, I think I threw out a number of 250,000 and they said it was in that end of the spectrum, not in the lower end. That's about it.
Lars or Justin, do you think that we should at least try to figure out if we could do Great Plain? But
I think
be
so.
really clear to town meeting that we might not be able to?
Yeah, I mean, I think, I think rather than kind of, I mean, if we need to be creative on how we split it, you know what I mean? Technically, so that if we do need to jettison in at the last minute, it doesn't spoil everything. We can still go forward with saying we'll do two, but we have the intent to do one quiet zone, sorry, dogs. But including Great Plain, I think is probably, is worth it. At least going forward, and then obviously if we need to, for whatever reason, we need to not pursue it, or look for an alternate thing, that we can do that.
And the diagnostic was gonna include Great Plain regardless of
Yeah.
whether or not they're gonna do it.
Sure, okay.
The other question then I guess is which option do we pursue as far as the other intersections and do we do the more the most aggressive safety measures, or do we do a combination of safety measures to get us the correct score?
I think there's no question that we have to do Gates at Oak
You have to do Gates
and
at
West.
You have to do Gates at West. Rosemary, I mean, I think that the median at Rosemary makes sense because we've already got the constant line down there, so you don't necessarily need the quad. You
What-
get benefit from like, right.
One question that I know, I remember I mentioned it before, and will this kind of, kill us in the future? One of the concepts that I've seen was a secondary discharge of the Sudbury Farms parking lot onto Rosemary. And so, that, I don't know where that is in terms of if that's still part of the visioning. Channelization might take that off the table. So I don't know, or what Lars is shaking his head. I know it would be we have to take a look at the maps again, but I just want to, if I don't have a problem with channelization, but I also just don't want to, I think having a secondary exit, might help, that whole central corridor. But I wanted to make sure that doesn't, because it would be considered a commercial driveway. And I know there's some special nuance with the clearance space that I believe Lars probably knows.
Yeah, I mean, I think in general, just looking at the geometry, if we wanted to make it a proper four-way intersection, vis-a-vis the library parking lot, obviously, if the channelization works relative to the library parking lot, it would work towards that. If you wanted to have the Sudbury Farms driveway even closer to Rosemary, then maybe that does introduce a challenge. But if you were to try to align the exit then at least with the current layout of parking, you still would be outside of the 60 feet minimum. So you should be okay. But maybe then that becomes, if that adding that down the road is a necessary thing, maybe that if we need to do 4 quad gates at that time, it becomes part of that project, but I think the likelihood of that is very low.
Do you think you would agree to a driveway that close to the, I mean,
I have to see how close it is, but it seems fairly close.
Yeah.
Where we are.
there's skepticism here.
Yeah,
No, and the only reason I bring it up is I saw it on some concept plans, that obviously it was concept
And that, the
and,
grade change is huge. Right?
What's
If you've
that?
ever tried to run down the grade there from the pool to Sudbury, I don't know, it'd be like, I don't know, has anybody else done that?
Yeah.
It wouldn't be ADA compliant.
No, but there has been talk about trying to have another exit, because the Highland Ave Sudbury Farms was in our top 5 crashes at one time. I don't think it's anymore.
They did some redesign work there.
I mean, you could always go right in, right out. If you were closer, you don't tend to get as many, the backups or would go through the intersection. My only concern on Rosemary is the high school and young drivers over there that do stupid things.
no.
Although I don't know how many, I mean, I guess if you're in a certain part of town, but I think a lot of them bail on the Highland Ave when they come down from Memorial.
But again, keep in mind with the quiet zone. The conductor can always blow the horn, and cars on the tracks. I mean,
It's more of just the,
yeah,
I can,
you know.
But we're still at the gate.
You still have the gates, so I mean, and they'd have to drive significant distance on the opposite side of the road or through the medians. I mean, yes, anything can happen.
Yeah.
But it's,
We just need a small budget for replacement.
Yes. Yeah.
So at least going forward, at least initially, right now, probably channelization, and we'll keep the cost down on that one. And if we do need to go up to quad gates, in the future, we can always do that. If that was an access issue or something, so.
I mean, the one thing to keep in mind with those, you said it kind of jokingly, keep a budget for it, but, snow removal, if we get a bad winter, those things will be replaced with
Yeah.
constantly. I mean, the ones that they put out there are already floating around in the street somewhere. So, and obviously, it's not like you you wouldn't remove them, I mean, a lot of those things that you see them come up, like where you have the ped ones, the crosswalks, the towns remove them during the winter and then put them back in the summer, but obviously you wouldn't be removing those, so.
Yeah.
Just, you're gonna have that kind of a de facto snow median there for a few days. So from a DPW.
And the cost
that's something I think
Additional cost of
the gates
the
there,
gate there is how much?
I mean. The gate system is about $500,000. In the grand scheme of a $5 million project.
Yeah, at the same time, those medians, I mean, just the rubber medians, I mean, they're like 15 grand for one crossing. So, if you need to have an extra set or two on attic stock ready to go, not to say it's nothing. I mean, there's obviously labor costs of rebolting them to the ground and whatnot, but I mean, it does make a difference. And, I guess if there's an opportunity to explore different ways of doing this, maybe this seems to be like the slam dunk place to do it. And I agree, it's just $500,000 in the grand scheme, but I would also say every $500,000 matters. In the grand scheme of things, try to be just.
It's certainly something to be added in the future.
Yeah.
The clock gate,
Yep.
right? You already have the CWT there. Okay.
But I agree with Justin that having Great Plain Avenue come along, at least for the design phase, definitely makes a lot of sense to just be able to give all the information we need to help with the redesign that's going to be happening there. It would be a shame if we didn't do that part and then we redesign Great Plain Avenue and then we do the quiet zone stuff, down the road. And we redesign. The other thing, just to mention another opinion is, I know we're talking about these potential, do nothing at a certain intersection things. And I know that that's not necessarily hanging out there too much, but one negative of that is I believe that changes then our permitting path with the FRA for getting quiet zone designation. If you do a supplemental safety measure at every crossing, then you're doing quiet zone designation. If you do something like skipping one of the intersections, and even though your overall score gets lower, then you have to do an application, which is a longer review process with the FRA. And then there's the potential they come back with other requirements. So just something else to keep in mind is that by at least doing something, it enhances safety at every location, which I think is our ultimate goal, but also it changes the outlook of timing of actually implementing this as well.
I agree. I can't see literally not doing anything,
Yeah.
Yeah,
So then it would be quad gates at Main Street as well?
If we're gonna do anything in Main Street, it would have to be gates.
Yeah.
Medium over.
Yeah, I've got here
Yeah, we said
612, 612, 6.
Yeah.
So there's no 0.
Yeah.
I don't know what those numbers mean, but they seem to mean.
So that would be us doing something at Great Plain Ave.
The 612, the 612, 612, what was.
Was
is to
median,
do it
median at
immediately.
Great Plains, yeah.
To do something there.
Is that
and
enough?
I guess at Great Plain, we could do mountable medians if emergency response wants the ability to drive over the medians. If they wanna slalom through, or you do the more refined vertical granite curb median if you want a nicer aesthetic. And we can otherwise operationally get them comfortable. But the results in terms of score are pretty similar, I believe.
You know, so you have to get rid of that left turn off of, garden.
Oh, is this a way to prohibit people from turning left onto Garden or left from Garden?
Yeah.
Left onto Great Plain
Yeah.
from Garden?
Heading towards her tracks.
And why would you have to do that?
Yeah, before we want to turn left from
Yeah,
Great
because
Plain
you
onto
have-
Garden,
Yeah,
right?
That's
right.
Yeah. before we get through
Yeah,
that.
The TSC has been looking into possibly prohibiting a left-hand turn during business hours, but taking a prohibition on that, I think is probably something that we're worth exploring, because it would be a higher risk.
So to decide on Great Plain Ave, we want to have a better understanding of what the constant warning time is going to do to the closure of Great Plain Ave. So we're going to do a little time study to see how long it would impact Great Plain Ave. And then a conversation with public safety again, I guess, a more formal
formal.
conversation.
And
And so,
do
but
we know exactly when the constant timing warning indicator would pop the gates? Do we know at what phase, at what signal, you know what I mean? At what, it was obviously, we're talking about that there's all these steps. At what step is it when the train is, when the doors close? Is that, or do we know what our starting point is? So we'll have the timings, but we just don't know where the starting point is.
Having to do it.
Yeah, so in the station is when it would start it. So as soon as it pulls into the station, the gates
Before loading,
stop.
so yes, okay, got it. So before stopping,
Now,
okay.
where that line is, like, could that line be like 10 feet before the station? That I don't know.
Sure.
But it's
Just so that then we
approximate.
could, once we have that point, then we know what all of our timing studies will actually do.
The problem with the cause of warning and why it's so expensive is you have a series of detectors up along the entire track. So if the train's coming in at 30 miles an hour, it's gonna detect it half a mile back. If the train's coming in at 5 miles an hour, it's gonna trigger it at, 100 feet back. So that's
Right.
the definition of constant warning. You're always getting the same amount of time for the gates to come down before the
For
train
Great
gets
Plain
to that crossing. So that's what it's based on. So, yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you for confirming that.
Yeah.
It's like, somebody said
So
that.
what Dave heard was that before May Street is what would trigger it. Based on the speed that they typically do.
It depends, that's why it has to.
has to just be,
It has to be designed, and that's what's so complex about this system is your constant warning time for May Street could be up at West Street. It's
Yeah.
all in the track.
So can we find out though,
But that doesn't matter. It doesn't matter where it is.
but if it's before May, it could be an extra, again, 30 seconds, 40 seconds. If we're timing out how long it would keep the gates down, we have to know when it's starting to trigger the
Yeah.
gates.
But it's, if the train is going slow, which it is, it's gonna trigger it closer to.
Oh, what does that mean, I think? We want to know what closer means.
Yeah, that's,
We don't know. We don't know.
you should be able to calculate it, because the speed's gonna be this, well, okay, within 5%, the speed is gonna be the same. So we can kind of know where it's gonna start. That's all I'm saying is, I understand the concept of it. I understand that if the train is operating faster.
Right?
okay, hold on one sec, go ahead, Justin.
Sorry, I was saying, we just, I understand the concept of it, but I think one could figure out, because the train is, you know, approximately the same speed coming into that station. So we kind of would know what that starting point is. That then would help the police and fire to be able to make an educated decision for what kind of mitigation that they're going to support or not support at Great Plain. That's all
So
I'm
we-
saying. I think I understand that, you know, we just need to know where our starting, because we can gather all this info, but we don't know where that starting time is. You know, we just don't have then a true estimate of the expected ETA.
So what two people heard, so I'm gonna take it as that it's probably accurate, at the golf club meeting, again, this is all back of the envelope conversations with Keolis and MBTA, was that would happen just before Mace.
Yeah,
The Main
as
Street
as it
intersection.
was, the train was approaching May,
Yeah.
which then be questions, if you're gonna have somebody out there do the timing, it's gonna give you your worst case scenario. Do they record the time that the May Street signals
Yeah.
go on as the time that
To start,
to start, and it may give you an extra 10 or 15 seconds, but at least then you know the train's in the station and it breaks.
And
Break
how
point
fast is the
after.
train going down?
But it's really,
They're
generally
the
going to-
max is 30, but it's not even going 30 kind of.
Can't even be going 5,
It's-
like,
well,
because they're not skipping any stops, so it's,
It's the dwell time that's the big unknown.
so basically, we would just be timing from May Street coming down to Great Plain Ave
Opening
coming
up.
up.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
I think there's our worst case
So
scenario.
useful.
Yep.
total, but, yeah.
The only thing I would just add is, just remember that when the diagnostic team review happens, the police and fire department are participants in that process, and so then there'll be a chance to hopefully if our safety officials have concerns about how long the gates are down, maybe then the MBTA and Keolis get a little more flexible about this kind of crazy idea that they're gonna close Great Plain Avenue when the train's approaching May Street. I mean, it's
well,
not logical.
the train decides, right?
Well, I mean, Lars, I'm sure you've had the same discussions, I mean, with Lou, I mean, this is not an unusual situation, all the trains up on the North Shore that are adjacent to intersections. This happens, the gates come down while the train's in the station, and the gates come up when the train leaves the station. So, to your point, at some point, it's gonna happen here. It's just a matter of time, you know.
I was gonna ask, could you give us the names of those communities, because it might be worthwhile, just, again, having our public safety talk to their public safety.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure we could find it.
On quiet zone towns.
Well, it has nothing to do with the quiet zones.
Oh, people who already have constant.
Constant warning signs, part of the constant warning, so all the new rail extensions that they've done up on the North Shore and all those modifications,
And
all of those have it.
They redone Pittsburgh when they redid that.
That probably has it too, yeah, so I mean, it's not uncommon, and it's part of the technology that's gonna eventually be in
Okay.
place, so. You know, we may be overthinking the whole process.
Right, but we
You
need,
know, because, let's face it, if MBTA comes in, if they had done it when they did the AC, the positive train control, it would be in there now, and we wouldn't be having this discussion, so,
okay,
and I don't think I don't know, were they working with police and fire with that in terms of what they were doing, so, I mean.
Well, I think the difference is the access that's the difference. Constant warning now, I mean, whatever, you can have it, you could have it go down for a minute and a half, it's gonna clog this town center up, but you can still get police and fire through there should there, you know, their risk attack. That, I think that's where we're getting is to that.
Right.
Now the quad gates are
you
gonna be
can't really
closing.
get a fire truck through there unless they barricade through.
Well,
the
what
gate.
was,
So that's what I mean. Now we're talking, that's why it's become an issue, is because of the blocking for such a long time.
but that's what I'm saying is, you can put the constant warning time in and not do anything else, you don't have to put a median, you don't have to get the quad gates there, you can still have the 2-gate system, because you get enough safety points benefits from the other mitigation we're doing. That week when the things were down, I was seeing school buses, the cops were waving school buses across there, which is a little cringy, but
Well,
but they physically can do it, so I think if with the existing 2-gate system, if you have that scenario, you know, again, the 1 in a million scenario where the gates were down and the fire truck was coming through and the train was stopped there.
oh, that's not 1 in a million, I see it all the time,
No,
but it's not a long time,
Right.
but it's not 1 in a
But-
million.
and well, I mean, that,
It's not there for a long time, it sits.
and I'm not like criticizing public safety, I understand that one minute makes the difference. But if there was no train crossing there would be 1 minute sooner regardless. So I mean, you have a train crossing there, that's the reality, you know, so.
Yeah, I'm not disputing that. I think that we should look at it. And see what the impact is. So we're gonna get the data. We're Dave's estimating 750. I'm giving it to Dave, based on, his feedback.
Yeah.
And that includes the diagnosis.
Yeah.
If they can't find a place to put the shed. Doesn't happen. I mean, that we have to be really clear at town meeting that this Great Plain is iffy.
And that it's not an all or nothing solution, that there are opportunities if we can't do one segment of it to get some progress. And I think that that is new from what we had talked about when we were going to them last year.
Can you and GPI write up a memo that, to the select board and the FinCom that sort of explains all this that we've.
Yeah, I started to pull something together. I want to wait and see where we kind of ended up tonight, so I can give you just.
So maybe GPI does a technical memo and I can just do a forward explaining.
Yeah.
Context.
Yeah, I would include all of the, like you did, all of the options that you looked.
Yeah, and, yeah, I mean, we'll do that, we'll say, I mean, I have no problem coming out saying we recommend it, some form of improvement of each one in the 612, 612, whatever it is, or. I was trying to figure out how to distinguish them, I'm like,
Just no zero, that's all.
No zeros,
Right,
right?
so,
Will they still do the horn though,
Whenever
when they're in the station?
the bell,
bells,
it's just a bell, they won't do the horn.
unless they
If
feel they need to.
Yeah, they.
Okay, Lars and Justin, you satisfied with where we're landing here?
Yeah, I think this makes sense as a strategy. I think the discussion about the timing and the realism about this happening by October, I think that's right. That's a long shot. But I think this is the right direction to head to try and just get an assessment of what it's gonna take to do this.
I agree.
Anybody else? We have to get out with the FinCom's coming in. All right, motion to adjourn,
Motion to adjourn.
Lars, you seconding that?
Second,
Okay. I have to poll Lars,
yes.
Justin,
Yes.
Duncan, and I vote yes. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, guys.
Before I get dropped, can I just ask two questions that are just administrative, almost like they'd be, is there another meeting after this? And what happens now with the process in terms of the warrant article? Are those not questions I can ask now? Sorry.
Yeah, well, actually, no, we already adjourned, so give me a call tomorrow.
Okay. Sorry. My
Right, Chris
apologies.
is here.
Everyone. Thank you, everyone.
Take it.